Hi, friends, Dave Paulides, Scanning and Missing Project, and that is the princess of the organization. That is Huck, and she wants me to always show her poster. I will. Okay, there she is. This is Huck TV. It's her channel, and I got to show some other things people have sent in. Of course, we've got the Huck hat that Dave wears on the trail. Yeah, I do wear that. And Huck's looking at me side-eyed. Don't laugh at my hat, Dad. If she's looking a little white today, it's because she had a bath this morning. Yeah, she's a good girl. And she's going to probably snooze it off for us, so we'll get going. Thank you for being here. And things have been interesting, I gotta say that. In the last several months, I've done a big push on research. And I usually don't like to do that during the summer because I like to be outdoors. Usually keep the research for the winter, but some things happened and I had to be indoors with Huck, and everything's great. And, but yeah, the case today, the first one is unbelievable, and it partners off a second case in the same area. The second case I've written about before. It's in my books, in the Western U.S. book. This first case, no one's ever heard of it before, and I'm sure after I post this, everyone's going to have it on their channel. Couple things, some administration work. I got a note from Phoenix MUFON. I'm supposed to speak there in December. The facility that they used to give their presentations at got flooded. It's a state facility and it's not going to be available for months. So they canceled me and they said they were really sorry, and that sucks because that is a great facility. That is great people out there. So I'm sorry. So that leaves my only, that leaves really my only appearance for the rest of the year is going to be on the 9th through the 16th of November. Actually, the 8th through the 16th of November at Gather Up Events. It's going to be the Caribbean Bigfoot Cruise. Yeah, I'm saying it's going to be the 8th because I show up a day early, and I lead a tour of Coral Castle in Florida. It's all set up. I don't do it. It's the organizers of the cruise here, Gather Up Events, Gather Up, one word. And yeah, it'll be fun. We're going to take a bus out to Coral Castle, have lunch out there, and it'll be a blast. And then we get on the cruise the next day. Oh, that'll be fun. Kind of looking forward to that. And no, Huck won't be able to go. She would hate it. She would hate the humidity. She would hate the heat. She would hate having Dad lead her around all day on the cruise. And I was thinking back, I don't remember any dogs being on any of the cruise ships. I don't think they allow them. But anyhow, get a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, something caffeinated to keep you awake because I might put you asleep. But these next two stories are a top 1% video. And I mean that 100%. The location we're talking about today is on the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The Sierra Nevada predominantly run north and south along the eastern side of California. Now on the western side, you've got Yosemite, Kings Canyon, Sequoia National Park, Dinky Creek. And just to the east of those locations is the location we're going to talk to you about today. Between the parks in this location runs the Continental Divide, and there are some huge mountains up in that area. I mean, 11, 12, 13,000 feet. Huge. And it's an area that's almost all granite. Very little travel out in this area. Very rough conditions. Let's just get to it. You've got the scenario a little bit. First case involves a young boy named Jimmy Lee Hawks, 5 years old. I'm telling you, no one's ever heard of this case. Missing June 22nd, 1968. It's a Saturday. He went missing at 4 p.m. Why is that important? Because if you're a 411 follower, you know the most common time to disappear, 4 p.m. He was camping with his older sister. Geneva Sally was her name. She was 28 years old, from Inglewood, California. And that's also where Jimmy lived with his parents. Now, this location is called Twin Lakes. It sits down in this deep valley just southwest of a city called Bridgeport, which is right on the border of Nevada and California. He was last seen wearing blue jeans, a blue shirt, and no shoes. Blue jeans, blue shirt, no shoes. Some articles stated that they were camping. Some articles stated they were in a cabin, but more articles said that they were camping. Well, at about 4 o'clock, Sally realized she couldn't find Jimmy. She contacted the staff in the area almost immediately, and at 4:20, they contacted the Mono County Sheriff's Office, and a deputy was in that valley and on scene almost immediately. Now, Mono County is a very small county. Yeah, it's 3,000 square miles, but there's not a lot of big crime. There is really no big cities, and the county is fairly destitute compared to some of the other big counties in the state. But that didn't mean anything. Now, just on the far eastern edge of Twin Lakes is the Hoover Wilderness area. And desolation doesn't even begin to come into it, and I'll explain that in a minute. So Bridgeport, California would be right up in this area off the map. But there's a place called Dogtown and Willow Springs. What you do is you drive a road in from Bridgeport, and this is lower. You first come to Lower Twin Lakes. Now you're in this valley, and then you would come to Upper Twin Lakes. These are both good-sized lakes. On this side, there's almost like a straight-up mountain. And then on the other side of that mountain, you go down a little bit, and there's Eagle Peak right there. That goes up to over 11,000. The area this way, there's no roads, there's no anything. This is a Hoover Wilderness area. You can't drive cars, etc. in this area. Only thing you can do is hike. This is just wild, open nothingness of granite and hard rock. So when you come into this area, there is some civilization. There's a place called Mono Village that's right up against the wilderness area. They've got a gift shop and some food. There's a little cafe here. This is all today, not back when. And there's campgrounds and etc. in this area. But you can't go this way, you can't go this way, and you can't go this way. One road in and out right there. Got it? Well, the sheriff's deputy gets on scene, does a cursory search, can't find Jimmy anywhere. People are freaking out. He calls for assistance right away. And the supervisor on scene calls for all federal agencies in that area to start responding to help. Well, the U.S. Forest Service is really the first ones to come in. And they start looking around. Now, the campsite is at the far, far eastern edge of that roadway. Can't go any further. They searched until dark with deputies and Forest Service personnel. They can't find anything. Now, this is Jimmy, 5 years old. The next day, on June 23rd, 300 searchers that were requested the night before all responded. To get into this remote area to get 300 searchers is phenomenal. 100 searchers came from Riverside. They responded overnight. They got more people in there, and they started dragging the lakes, thinking that he went in the lake. The elevation of Twin Lakes is 7,087 feet. That's pretty high. My sister had a cabin up at Lake Tahoe that's 6,200 feet. Used to ski there all the time and fish, and 6,200 never really bothered me. Up above 8,000, 9,000, that starts to get to me, but maybe not you. Now, I lived in Denver area at 6,200 feet. After I lived there like a year, that didn't even bother me at all. So the searchers on the 23rd also were getting helicopter and plane support that flew up and down this valley. Now, I can only imagine how loud that was because it's this confined valley. Choppers, planes going up and down all day, nothing, seeing nothing. Now, on the side of these mountains where this valley is at, there's almost no ground cover because it's all granite. Now, down on the valley floor, there's a couple of areas where there's patches of trees and things, but nothing like a super thick forest. The next day, June 25th, 300 searchers plus are still on scene. Sheriff said he had no idea if the child drowned, but he got 3 different diving teams that were there that were searching both lakes. And he had multiple bloodhound teams that weren't picking up anything. Southern California and Nevada search and rescue teams were still arriving. And deputies from Mono County stated that they had 0 clues about where Jimmy was at. Nighttime searches were, temperatures were in the 40s, and they said that was decent for that area. Late in the day, the sheriff called off all lake dragging because he didn't find any evidence that Jimmy may be in those lakes. You notice how, if you've been following me for a while, anytime there's water anywhere, law enforcement always goes to the water first. I'm not saying that's not a bad idea. I'm just saying that they're brainwashed. On June 26th, the sheriff said he believed it was possible that Jimmy may be hiding from searchers. And he had already requested from the night before that from the Pacific Missile Center, they had a special speaker system that could broadcast for miles. And he had requested that they borrow it. Well, the Air Force sent over an A-3 Sky Warrior jet attack bomber piloted by Commander Charles F. Wood. And he flew the speakers and its equipment from that Pacific Missile Range to Fallon, Nevada. There, a private pilot picked up the speakers and the system and flew it to Bridgeport. At Bridgeport, they had a Navy helicopter land, and they equipped the helicopter with the speaker system. The idea is that Mrs. Hawks was already on scene. They recorded her voice, and they had her say, "Hey, Jimmy, it's okay. You can come out of the woods. It's okay. It's your mom. I'll meet you." And she repeated this over and over and over. Now you have the Navy helicopter over this valley blasting this sound out. I can only imagine. I mean, if I had been there, I wouldn't have cared. I would have wanted to find the boy. I would have helped in finding the boy. But wow, what a scene if you were just caught in the middle of this as a tourist. Really. June 27th, they do the same thing. June 28th, sheriff came out and said that they didn't get any response from anywhere about the speaker system. Searchers went down to 200, and they were doing grid searches of the valley floor for a second, third, and fourth time. Search and rescue now was being orchestrated by Mono County Under Sheriff Gary Cummings, because local reports stated that the sheriff, Evans, hadn't slept in 48 hours and was exhausted. 3 teams of divers were still searching the lakes. And then Mono County did something I don't understand, but I guess for the time maybe it's understandable. They had a deputy travel to San Francisco and make a presentation to the news media there. And they asked if anyone who was in that Twin Lakes Valley on June 22nd to come forward if they had ever seen a little boy walking alone, walking with somebody. They showed his picture. They said, hey, if you've seen that boy walking around with anyone or alone on the 22nd, please call us. Here's our number. We really need it. We need a lead. We don't have anything, blah, blah, blah. And that was broadcasted throughout the state. They didn't get anything. Well, searches were still going on in the valley floor. Day into darkness. June 29th, helicopters and planes had still been on the scene since the 23rd. And the sheriff said, not one clue has been found. Canines never picked up a scent. No witnesses ever came forward. In some of these cases, we get a big defined explanation about how the boy disappeared. In this one, they didn't. They didn't give it. They just said that the sister lost track of him around their campsite. That's all it was said. So, June 30th, early in the morning, the sheriff stated that they were going to search all the areas within 2 miles again. That's essentially the entire valley floor. Some areas have been searched 10 times. He said, I don't care, we're doing it again. And then he privately told all of the administrators from the different search and rescue teams that unless they came up with a big clue today, they were calling off the search at 5 o'clock. Which is understandable considering it's a small county and they were 8 days now since the disappearance, 7 full days of searching. There were still divers in both lakes. Every camper staying in the basin was questioned by law enforcement. Jimmy's parents had been on scene since day 2. That morning, June 30th at 9:45, the California Conservation Corps had sent in a team from Clerk Creek, and they'd been searching for several days. One of their Corps members, a man named Manuel Torres, and his team were given a swampy area right next to the lake to search. There wasn't a lot of water, it was just a little muddy. And they were 7/8 of a mile from the point where Jimmy was last seen. So not even a mile away. As Manuel's making his way through, he finds some branches covering something. Wasn't sure what it was. He kneels down, moves the branches away. There's Jimmy Hawks. He found the body. It was in an area above Upper Lake, meaning towards Lower Lake. At the time, they made a statement that he had been dead 2 to 4 days. Oh, what? If he was dead 2 to 4 days, where had he been for 8 days. This was right in the middle of the entire search zone. This would have been a primary search zone at a mile away. The area would have been crawling with searchers the entire time. So that was on June 30th. Complete quiet nothingness until July 5th. The Inyo Independent of July 5th made the following statement. Jimmy was found in an area that had been searched countless times. The body was taken to Bishop for an autopsy. The theory at the time is that he had died of exposure. Sheriff stated he could have passed within 2 feet of the body and missed it. And then there was a statement I've never seen before. I have no idea what it means, but here's the statement. Specimens have been taken and sent to Reno for analysis. Specimens of what? Tested for what? Sent where? I have no idea. Confusing statement at best. The searchers were from 5 counties that assisted: Mono, Inyo, Riverside, Sierra Madre, Douglas, Nevada, Inyo National Forest personnel, Mono Conservation Camp, numerous canine teams and bloodhound teams, helicopters and planes. Huge effort. The autopsy report never released. The sheriff never said a crime occurred. Later, before, ever. No formal cause of death. No date formally given when the boy died. Nobody ever came forward and saw Jimmy walking alone. Canines never picked up his scent, but he was right in the middle of the primary search zone. There's granite everywhere, water everywhere. He was found in an area searched countless times, a swampy area. And a swampy area is part of the profile points. You get it? He didn't drown. There wasn't enough water in the swamp to drown. I have no idea why he did drown, why he did die. There was a complete lock on the information after that. And oh, did I search. Okay, so that is Jimmy Lee Hawks. And you think, well, maybe that's where the story ends. Oh, you'd be wrong. In Missing 411 Western US, the first book I wrote in the Missing 411 series, I wrote a story about another young boy from the exact same spot. The boy's name? David Allen Scott, 2 years old. Now, David went missing July 13th, 1957. Jimmy went missing June 22nd, 68. So 57 to 68, 11-year difference. Also missing from Upper Lake in Mono County. If you've been with me for a while, you know I say that when things happen in the exact same location, if you allow them to happen a year or two apart, well, then the people working in that area are going to remember. But you spread them out 10, 15, 20 years, chances are people aren't going to remember. Exactly. So David's father owned a plastering contracting business in San Diego County. He did well. He decided to take his family to the Twin Lakes for a vacation. They had their son Tony at 4 years old, Cindy at 6 years old, and David was 2 years old, being the youngest. The Scotts pulled their trailer from San Diego up into that upper Twin Lakes area, and they parked it at the far western edge of the upper lake, exact same spot as Jimmy. This place has several, like I said earlier, has several large groves of trees and on that valley floor, but there's few in the surrounding mountains. Scots arrived late on a Friday afternoon, July 12th. July 13th was a Saturday. At about 2 o'clock, the Scots were in front of their trailer and they saw David about 100 yards away. Stop right there. 1957, different time in life. I'm telling you right now, if you're in the wilderness, don't do that. Don't let your 2-year-old be 100 yards from you. Mountain lion, bear, could all take your child, run with it, at 2 years old and be gone, and you'll never see your child again. Don't do this. Even though they're on a valley floor and there's people everywhere, it doesn't matter. They saw David 100 yards away near a grove of trees. They said he wasn't moving fast and they weren't really concerned, and they went into their trailer, as they stated, momentarily. They both said that they came back out and bam, David wasn't anywhere to be seen. They said they started searching right away, ran over to that area by the trees, looked around, yelled his name, nothing. They talked to the park personnel right there, and they called the Mono County Sheriff. At 3 o'clock, the sheriff had arrived, sheriff's deputy had arrived and was on scene. And then right after that, the sheriff himself, Cecil Thorington, arrived, started to take command of the scene, and requested assistance from the U.S. Forest Service, state and federal agencies. As I said earlier, this area is surrounded by mountains over 10,000 feet. You're in a valley. Darkness comes quickly there, because when the sun sets over those huge mountains, boom, it's dark. The search went way into the night, with the sheriff requesting assistance from everyone. Yeah, you're a good girl. Now again, 2 years old. Now there's some people saying, oh, he was 3 or 4 years old. No. I guarantee 100%. The day he disappeared, he was 2 years old. July 14th, the press was on scene the very next day and interviewed the Scots. They said something, I think, prophetic. Parents have a keen sense of things sometimes, and I think these parents did. They said, we think our boy was kidnapped. Well, why do you think that? Because he got out of that area so quickly, our son can't move that quick. That's what I think they thought. But they did say that they thought he was kidnapped. Now, if I was them, I would have thought through this and said, my boy can't move that quick. How did he get out of that area so quickly unless somebody took him? Right? Well, the sheriff ordered all the ponds, lakes, and marshes dragged. Typical. July 15th, the sheriff ordered all cars leaving the valley and driving in and out of Bridgeport to be searched. It's a bold move. I like it. Bold move. You got to make those decisions sometimes, and I'm sure the parents appreciated it. If it was my car driving in and out of there and you wanted to search it. I don't care. They had 250 searchers on scene by the 15th. And it included Marines from the High Altitude Training Center at Pickle Meadows. There was mild weather that gave searchers hope that maybe the boy would still be alive. It wasn't that hot, wasn't that cold. Late in the day on the 15th. Now remember, he went missing on the 13th. Late on the 15th, bless you, bloodhounds arrived from Los Gatos, my old hometown. This team that they brought in had been highly successful in the past at finding missing people. Yeah, everyone hears you. Everyone hears you. You're a good girl. The dogs were given special access to all of David's clothes. And they smelled them, tried to figure out, get a good scent on him. Late that afternoon, the dogs take off after the smell, and they go to the bottom of the steepest granite mountain in the area. Hey, what are you doing? Come on. And they walk to the base of the mountain like they're following a scent, and they stop. And the trainer said it's like the dogs suddenly lost track, lost the scent. So it's late at night, they call off the search. The next day, July 16th, 7 a.m., they get an early start. The canines team up with the U.S. Marines from Pickle Meadows. Now these guys are in good shape because they're training at high altitude. So this altitude doesn't bother them. They're acclimated to it. So they'll go anywhere. Well, they decide they've got no clue where David's at. So they decide that they're going to go up that mountain on a hunch. They later said that the mountain is almost straight up. Straight up granite from the valley floor. As you're climbing up, you could look back and you could see the campground, see the people, and they could see you. So the Marines start up and they get 3,000 feet up this mountain. And they come across one of David's shoes. One shoe. And they know it's David's. They started looking around. They searched the area intensely. They got nothing. And the Marines are confused that how did that boy get 3,000 feet up here? And then how could he keep going without a shoe because this granite is like razor sharp? Well, what happens is you go 3,000 feet and then you kind of crest the top of this mountain. You go down into a gully and then you're on the base of what's called Eagle Peak. Eagle Peak's like 11,800 foot mountain. So you go up the small mountain, down just a little bit, level off, and then the big peak starts. So they're in this little gully area. The Marines described it as being riddled with huge boulders, all granite, rough conditions. Typical place for a 411 case, right? So a U.S. Marine sergeant named Sergeant Robert O'Brien was searching at the base of Eagle Peak. And he goes around one of the big boulders. And he found David laying on the ground deceased. He was wearing just a t-shirt and one red, white, and blue sock on his foot. No pants, nothing on his other foot. Dead. Sergeant O'Brien takes out his gun, fires one round, indicating he'd found the body. On July 16th, an article stated that the boulder-strewn mountain was so steep that searchers said it was hard to believe the child was able to make it up over 3,000 feet. O'Brien was later asked if there was any signs of violence to the body. He stated, "I don't know, this is out of my line." That was his quote. Search and Rescue Manual says that a child 2 to 3 years old is found 99% of the time at 2,300 feet or less in elevation from the point they were last seen. So 99% of the time, a child that age will go to a maximum of 2,300 feet and be found. So David just blew those numbers right out of the water. But again, search and rescue doesn't want to go outside of those recommended zones. But my question is, how many cases do they lose by not going outside those zones? How many people do they not find? So bloodhounds didn't find the boy. There's clothing missing and one shoe. And to me, this is really interesting. Those items were never found. Even though you had hundreds of searchers there for 5 days. I'm sorry, 3 days. And they never found something big like that, and the canines never picked up on something like that that had a scent on it. I find that odd. David had no shoes on his feet. How did he get up that mountain? Or did he get up that mountain? Cause of death was dehydration, exposure. Remember, if the theory is he climbed that mountain, all David had to do was look back and see all that water in that lake. Why keep going up instead of just turn around and go back and see your folks? So friends, I'll get more into that in a second. Remember, Mr. and Mrs. Scott thought David was kidnapped. Keep that in your mind. If there were no marks on David's body, why wouldn't Sergeant O'Brien just say that? I think there was something about that body that disturbed him greatly. But he didn't say it. Point of separation. Parents went in the trailer. David's gone. Water and granite everywhere. Is it odd that the person who finds David is a government employee whose job and future can be held over him if he ever says anything or speaks about it outside of what he can say? I don't know of any location anywhere like Twin Lakes that have had 2 boys missing under similar unbelievable circumstances. Just to the west is Yosemite, Kings Canyon, Sequoia National Parks, and Dinky Creek. I think this was in a newspaper, and I think it's a great graphic of the area. This is north. This is upper Twin Lakes up here. There's a little area between the 2 lakes right here. Lower, upper. When you drive in, you come in from Bridgeport this way. Road is here. Nowadays, there's roads on both sides of this lake. But you drive to the back, and there's a village called Mono Village. Now, both families were camped at that far end. Now, there's nothing past that. You can't drive into that area. There's nothing back here. This is the Hoover Wilderness area. See that arrow up there? Way up there? That's where David was found. Here's Eagle Peak right here. You believe that? You believe he was found there? And you believe he climbed there? See, I've been doing this too long. I know too much. Let's go back to Missing 411, the UFO connection. There's a part in there, somebody gets abducted, taken up in their ship. And when whoever they are, the entities or whatever, the aliens, are done with them, they drop them on the ground. And then he said he hurt his shoulder and rolled down a hill. think there's a lot more to this story about David that the sergeant couldn't say. Now, in both cases, the formal autopsy was never released. If we go back to Jimmy's case, if he was deceased 2 to 4 days, where was he the other 4 days? You will never get me to believe he was just walking around out there. No, because he would have been seen by the hundreds of searchers everywhere. They all had a picture of him. Come on. So where was he? Now, in David's case, you will not convince me that that boy climbed that hill. You will never convince me in my lifetime that that boy climbed that hill. When Ben was 2 years old, yeah, he was a stout kid, strong kid, but 2 years old, he's going to climb that hill? That dog don't hunt. Sorry, it ain't happening. And remember, you could see people going up that hill, just like you could see a boy going up that hill. But nobody saw a boy going up that hill. And then over the top of that hill, you go down into a gully. Nobody could see that area. There's the body. You kind of get it. That's why these two cases are a top 1% case in video. It is so unusual to have two little boys from the exact same spot in a valley disappear over an 11-year period. One disappears June 22nd, one disappears on July 13th, 11 years apart. I'm sorry if I get a little riled up, but these were little boys. They were somebody's family and they ruined the lives. Whatever happened here, I know that those families were ruined. I feel very, very sorry for Jimmy's sister, who probably harbored a lot of guilt about this for her whole life. And the same as the Scotts, thinking a million times, why did we go into that trailer? I don't think it would have mattered. I think whatever is out there is looking for that opportunity when nobody's looking. You do me a huge favor. Please put this on your social media. It will greatly help us. In the meantime, be kind. It's a kindness revolution. It costs nothing to be kind. And while we're talking with somebody, it means we care. And dialogue is always important. Huck is looking at me going, Dad, I'm hungry. I gotta go feed her. Be safe. Paulides out.